Terry G. Nelson Sr. here, author of Writing a Vision. Come today to talk to you a little bit about some of the stories I wrote. I wrote some stories in my book, very inspirational stories, spiritual based stories. And today I want to read one of them to you today. Well, actually, I'm going to have my beautiful wife read one to you. And the story that she's going to read is called The Storyteller. It's a short story, and it's been enjoyed by quite a few people. And this is my wife, Cassandra Kutcher, as I call her, Khalid. Come on, girl. And she's going to come to you and read a story from the book, Writing the Vision. And come on over here. Okay, I'll let you sit down. Go ahead, have a seat. I'll just crawl over here.
Hello, everyone. This is Cassandra Nelson, and I'm going to give you a short story, the reading of The Storyteller. There was once an old man who would come out of his house every afternoon and sit under the large oak tree in his yard. This is where he did his best reading. One day, one of the children in the neighborhood stopped at the gate and said, "Hey, Mr. Gordon, what are you reading?" He replied, "Come on in, Joe, and let me tell you a story." Mr. Gordon told the most amazing stories, and soon all the children in the neighborhood were sitting with him every afternoon under the old oak tree. He would serve them ice cold lemonade every day. Every time one of the children would ask him what he was reading, he would always have the same answer. Putting the book to the side, he would say, "Let me tell you a story." Train a child. The children loved coming to listen to old Mr. Gordon and hearing the stories he told. One day, while listening to one of his stories, little Sam asked, "Why does your grass feel like plush carpet?" The children loved just sitting and lying on the grass while Mr. Gordon told his stories. Mr. Gordon said, "It's a special grass found nowhere else in the world." But they were so amazed at his stories, they didn't think much about it. One day, a new girl from California moved into the neighborhood. She was a little sad about having to make new friends, and she had heard of New Orleans, but had never been there. One of the other children, after remembering one of Mr. Gordon's story, befriended her and invited her over to Mr. Gordon's house that afternoon. She said, "Girl, you have to hear the stories he tells." All the children loved Mr. Gordon. While he was telling a story, the new girl, who was named Joyce, asked, "What is that book over there?" Mr. Gordon only said, "Quiet, let me tell you this story." Now, as it turned out, there was about 30 children from the ages of 8 to 12 who gathered in his yard every day. Mr. Gordon told stories of real life, stories of great love, great romance, love lost, love gained, stories of how lives were changed. War stories, stories about good and the bad, but all his stories ended on a good note. They were amazing stories, and he never told the same one twice. One day, while all the children were sitting intently and listening to Mr. Gordon, a parent walked up to the gate and said, "Hey, Charles, it's time to go." He called his son 3 times before the boy heard his father call. As they walked home, the father asked, "What are you kids doing over there every day?" "We listening to the old man tell his amazing stories," Charles said. The father stopped in his tracks and said, "What old man?" "Mr. Gordon," he replied. "Son," he said, "let me tell you a story. This is crazy. About 30 years ago, when I was about your age, there was an old man who lived there. His name was Mr. Gordon, and he would tell us all these stories, and we would always be at his house. Our parents would even leave us with him when they ran errands. He kept this book and never told us what it was he was reading. But one day he forgot it by the tree. And being a child, I had to see what it was. I picked it up, turned it over, and saw the word Holy Bible. When I opened it, there was Mr. Gordon's stories, stories that never left us. He always told us that his stories were alive and will be told to our children. Mr. Gordon's place was the only spot in the hood that was safe, and no one can explain to this day why it still looks the same when no one has lived there since he died. Even the grass is still the same. It always has a fresh cut, but we never see who cut it. The father, tears welling up in his eyes, looked back at the house and could for a moment only see a bunch of children sitting around an old oak tree. And then all of a sudden, there appeared the figure of Mr. Gordon sitting there, just as he remembered. He told his son, Mr. Gordon changed my life by teaching me the ways of Christ. Mr. Gordon spent a large part of his life bringing change to the lives of others by telling the story of the Bible. It is time for us to do the same because all the stories led straight to Jesus. To know him is to be amazed.
Amen. And we thank you. And until next time, be blessed.